So thank you again for being here today. You're here from all around Kentucky. We've got some out-of-state folks as well. We plan to keep this event at Sustainable Harvest Farm right at an hour. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Ford in just a little bit, and he will give the bulk of the presentation. We'll round back up with question and answers that you have presented in the chat during the time. So please use that chat, share with us who you are. And I am Jenny. I am the Education Program Coordinator for OAK, the Organic Association of Kentucky. And I'm joined today by our fearless leader, OAK's Executive Director, Brooke Gentile, as well as Robin Verson, our Communications Diva, and Katie Harvey, OAK's CSA Program Rockstar. So I'll start off by sharing a little bit about our nonprofit and what to expect from today's event. And after that brief introduction, I'll pass the mic to Farmer Ford so you can get right into his fields at Sustainable Harvest Farm. We wouldn't be doing this event without the support from our friends at Grow Appalachia via the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We are definitely stronger together by partnering in this work of farmer education and healthier food systems in Kentucky and beyond. So those of you who are from Grow Appalachia, thank you very much. And those of you who work with them, give them a shout out when you can. They're great. So OAK is a membership-based nonprofit organization. We've got over 400 members, which include a lot of farmers as well as local food advocates, allied professionals, and others who are interested in supporting our mission of advancing organic regenerative agriculture to improve the health of the environment in our communities. We're dedicated to growing ecological resilience, economic viability, and socially just futures for Kentucky farmers through educational, technical, and market resources. We do that through farmer field days, which are typically on farm events, and we develop those events based on requests and feedback from you, our farmer members, our participants. So please provide your feedback in that survey we're going to share at the end of the event. We also offer an annual organic farming conference. We're getting ready to release our keynotes for our 11th annual gathering, which will happen in 2022. It's a little bit virtual, a little bit in person. And we've got an organic transition trainer program, which offers free technical assistance to OAK members as they prepare for organic certification. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And we're not just about farmer education. We also provide consumer education. We offer resources and events to connect Kentuckians with local farms and food. We have an online Find a Farm directory, which does that exactly. By listing OAK member farms and sharing their information to folks throughout Kentucky who are seeking to connect with local farmers and healthy foods. All of this you can learn about in our newsletters. We have two of them, a farmer-focused one for farmers and ag professionals and anybody on our news mailing list, as well as a consumer one that's a little more specific. So farmers, even if you don't consider yourself consumers and more so the other direction, sign up for that and you'll get lots of great recipes and gardening tips and lots of great stuff to share with your consumer audience as well. For those who have just joined us, we have a few resources and an overview to share with you. We'll get right into the conversation with Farmer Ford in just a moment. You should have full screen view of the PowerPoint and a thumbnail view of me as the active speaker. Move that anywhere you want. Please keep yourself muted and share your questions in that chat that you're populating with who you are today. We are recording today's event and we are focusing on a certified organic farm. So we wanted to share a few resources with you in that regard. These resources, again, will be in the PDF we share with you afterwards with active hyperlinks on all of these underlined sections. And I will call your attention to that orange notation in the top left, which is from the National Organic Program's regulations. And they share all of those online. The references will be along the slides in today's program. They share, for example, that organic sign that you saw in the previous one, which is one way that farms, certified organic farms, meet the regulation to show their distinct and defined boundaries and buffer zones, etc. So just an example, when there's one of those, it will be in reference to something on that slide or in the content that gets into a regulation. And so regulations are only one part of what we're going to hear about today, but mostly how it's lived in real life from Ford. We're grateful to Ford for joining us as a former Oak board member and an active and longtime Farm Share Coalition farmer. Thank you, Ford, very much for being here. Thanks for sharing with us, and it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much for the introduction, Ginny, and thanks for all the folks at Oak putting this all together and the funding from Grow Appalachian and others. But wish we could do this in person. Not very good in front of a computer screen, especially when I have to look at myself part of the time. So, but thanks for joining us today. So yeah, I'm Ford Waterstrat from Sustainable Harvest Farm in London, Kentucky. Just kind of a quick overview, I guess. Started farming on my own in 2019 or 2009 as a first generation farmer. But I guess to back up, before that, had zero farming experience and went to college to be a school teacher and didn't enjoy it so much, and was fortunate enough to get a job working at one of the state's premier organic farms at Elmwood Stock Farm right as I started teaching, and just really enjoyed my experience out there and decided that I wanted to start farming on my own. So I think I started working at Elmwood in 2004, 2003 or something like that, and then kept teaching until 2015 to where I transitioned to full-time farming. And it's kind of where we are now. I guess this is our 6th season with me farming full-time. We have 9 wonderful, wonderful guys that come work for us each year. Approximately March to October. Sometimes a couple come earlier, stay. A few stay a little bit later, but it's a wonderful crew of guys that come through the H2A program. We had a couple guys here for 4 seasons now. So there's a bottom picture there. You can see that was the team from last year, but we've added quite a few new employees for this year. So yeah, just going to transition to the next slide. Oh, and also just backing up on that last slide. So the 9 crew members, that includes like those guys do all our delivery. They manage a lot of office stuff as well, and I mean, invoicing. And it's just a terrific crew, and there's no way I'd be able to do it without them. So thankful for those guys. Really like this quote here: "Plans are nothing, but planning is everything." You know, so we spend a lot of time developing plans on the farm, but they don't always amount to what we hope for. So cool quote. But this is kind of a general overview of what we're going to be covering today. Talking a little bit about how it is farming in a rural community, because London is pretty rural. Noticed Will Bolin was on the video as well. He's even more rural than I am. But we're also going to talk a little bit about kind of how our markets have evolved, like different places we sell. We'll talk a little bit about as we've scaled up and kind of setting limits. Talk a little bit about finding other people in our community that have been just a real blessing to us, and then just a few other topics kind of beyond production, like insurance and regulations and whatnot, and then different initiatives that we've been able to participate in. So, let's see. So just to kind of give you a little idea of where we are. So you can kind of see on that map, Sustainable Harvest Farm is kind of sandwiched in the middle of nowhere halfway between Knoxville and Lexington. So we service both areas. We're down in Knoxville twice a week delivering produce, and then in Lexington once a week, and then some other areas as well. But yeah, so my wife grew up here in London, Kentucky, actually just about a half mile from where we live. She grew up, but I'm originally from Washington State, came to Kentucky for college. But so rural Kentucky was what is kind of new to me. Farming was new to me, and there were a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities in a rural community as well. But I guess one of the first challenges that we faced was just a small customer base. I mean, there's London's a fairly small town, not that many people interested in certified organic produce. So we kind of realized pretty early on that we needed to go to the big cities of Lexington and Knoxville to find much traction with our organic produce. And I'm so thankful that right as I stopped teaching, the Kentucky Farm Share Coalition was formed, and I was so fortunate to be invited to participate in that. And that's really helped to spur our business along. I can't remember why I put in there about supply challenges, but but oh yeah. So getting organic seeds and boxes, and I mean everything that goes with running a farm. It's difficult to get different supplies for organic farms, and I mean in all of Kentucky, but especially in rural Kentucky. Then also another thing about kind of in the hills of Appalachia, there is some flat land that is nearby. We're close to some river bottoms and stuff like that. But there still is quite a bit of agriculture in our area. A couple really good tobacco and hemp farmers still. Well, they've transitioned. Well, anyways, land is not easy to come by. Joel Salatin's books always talk about, hey, just find some land and go around knocking doors, and we did that. We're very fortunate to have found some land and some good productive land, but most of our production is leased, which we'll get into later on. But also another thing is, one of the things that we found about flatland around us is it's usually by river bottom, and river bottoms flood, and every year we have some devastating floods, but we just keep going with it. But also, we'll talk a little bit about strategies for success, about diversifying markets, extending our reach. We travel quite a bit, and as you can kind of see, the I-75 corridor there. When I was still teaching, I was teaching in Richmond, which is kind of halfway between London and Lexington. So, man, we'd call every restaurant and every place that would buy produce, and on my way to work in the mornings, I'd be delivering produce all the way up to Lexington and whatnot. So, but yeah, so we've diversified our markets. We'll get in a little bit more later on, but and have learned so much as we've expanded. So just kind of the farm evolution. You can see in the photos there. Let me look at the picture there in the top left. That is our home farm. That's where we have about 6 acres of production at our home farm, and you can kind of see the high tunnels, and then we also got our packing shed and greenhouse and all that stuff. But that's very nice. It's right behind our house. Actively producing vegetables there. And we started out though with an even smaller piece of land. We started out with a ½ acre down the road because we bought our house but didn't have the money to buy the land behind our house. So that was later on. But we started out basically with a ½ acre. We'll see some pictures later on. These two bottom pictures are a really nice gentleman lets us lease his farms, but he knew I had no experience farming, so he was at first pretty reluctant about letting us take over all of his land. So we started out with leasing about 2 of his acres, and every couple of years he'd let us lease a little bit more. And I think this year we're leasing a total of 18 or 28, 15, 20 acres, something like that from him. But super generous. Very thankful for his support. But as you can see there, they're river bottom, so floods every year. But we'll make it through that though. But yeah, and so we're leasing about 20 acres this year, raising about 35 acres of produce, and then we're fortunate enough to come across another piece of farmland that's about 3.5 miles from here, but it's another 17 acres. Fortunately, all they did was graze cattle on it for the last 20 or 30 years or something like that. So we're able to transition that right to organic production for next year. We actually just we're out in the field mowing down the cover crop yesterday. So it's excited about that piece of property and continue to expand. But yeah, it's a quite an evolution starting from nothing. Here's just kind of a fun photo. So we're spread out. We farm. I think this year we're mainly farming on 4 different farms, but the furthest farm is 5.5 miles away. You kind of see in this photo here, there's the tractor, you can see a bicycle strapped to it, there's a bush hog and a plastic lifter. So kind of what's going on here is, I would go to this one farm, bush hog it, lift the plastic, ride my bike 5.5 miles back home, probably to grab another tractor or do something else. But we've had to be pretty creative to make it work. But again, super thankful that we are able to find land, because even for the East, it's even more challenging. But yeah, we get pretty creative sometimes. So there's another picture I've got it's like with a front end loader. It's like I think like 5 implements hooked to a tractor. But anyways, we're gonna kind of shift a little video here. one of the things that we've learned over the years, maybe it's, who knows, we might fail on this idea next year, but we had certain crops that basil and celery and fennel and stuff like that, that if we put them out in the middle, 25 acres of vegetables, we kind of get lost and we kind of lose track of it. So we started planting these smaller plots or these specific crops in small areas just to do a better job with it. So I'll let the video talk about it.
We are here at just a kind of a small, unique planting, small section of fennel and basil and celery. So in years past, we would have planted those right into the other rows of plastic out in the big field. And then when it came to harvest them, or if they needed something done to it, it was just so easy to overlook them or even to forget about them. So we've, some of the unique smaller crops that we grow just for our farm share members, like fennel, basil, and celery, we decided to kind of shrink the area down into easy to manage location where it's easy to always look at and determine what that crop needed. Because if we planted this small amount of fennel or basil out into the wide open field, it'd just be too easy to get lost and to forget about it. As we've expanded, taken our less crops that we don't quite grow quite a large amount of that we still need, and kind of just section them off here. So these are just really, maybe 70 or 80 foot rows here, black plastic, 2 rows of drip tape going underneath them. And then you can kind of see the white rows over there. Those are for later basil and for celery that doesn't like the heat quite as much. So just kind of some things we're trying to do to make sure our farm share members get good stuff, but we don't have to think as hard about them or maybe lose track of them.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I was forgot to mention, another reason we decided to do that planting in those small sections, we had a water access there to regular city water, which most of all of our irrigation comes out of the creek and rivers, but we have water that we have next to high tunnel, so we just use it there as well. But and again, if you have questions all along, I'd love to answer them as we go. I think the practices we'll go over the questions at the end of the session. So talk a little bit about our market evolution. And again, I give credit so much to Elmwood. They've been kind of the leaders in Kentucky in organic farming. At least for me, they've been my mentors and still are. Actually, I still remember asking, after I left Elmwood to farm a little bit on my own, I asked John, I said, John, what do you think about starting a CSA? He said, don't do it. He said, you'll screw up. And so we waited a year, then we started doing CSA with 15 members, just our local community here, friends from church, and a couple people from the farmers market. So 2010, we were just doing our first year doing a CSA in our local Laurel County Farmers Market. And now very fortunate to be doing 420 CSA shares, and that's kind of a lot goes to Lexington, some in our local community, and a good number of people down in Knoxville as well, and then we also have some kind of Corden in Somerset. And we also do work with a couple grocery stores and also institutional sales like college and hospitals. So we do, I can't remember what the percentage spread is, but I think like 35, 40% of our vegetables goes to CSA, and the rest goes to, I think like 30% or so goes to retail, and then we grow about 30% for wholesale. So we grow for Appalachian Harvest. They're out of Duffield, Virginia. They've been really helpful in helping us kind of get comfortable with the wholesale market. Fortunately, they come to London with a big refrigerated truck, and we give our produce to them, and they take it back to Virginia. And then we also grow for the new to us this season. We're actually starting deliveries next week. A company out of North Carolina. They're from Durham, North Carolina, but we're meeting them in Asheville, North Carolina. They're growing quite a bit of crops for them. And then we also, after a lot of hoop jumping and silliness, been selling to Whole Foods for, I think this is our second season, but really have been fortunate. We're selling to quite a few Whole Foods now, and that's been good for us. Very helpful. That, after you get, if you're interested in selling them, it is a lot of work, and insurance requirements are quite silly. But once you develop that relationship, they're really good to work with. In fact, I was at another Whole Foods starting sales up there, and they told me they're working with one specific farmer already on a specific crop. And I said, well, who's the farmer? They told me who the farmer was. Oh man, that's awesome. And they said, yeah, even if you have product and even if your price comes in a little bit lower, we've been working with this farmer for, maybe a season or two now. And they said, we want to keep that relationship with the regional farmers. So once you develop that relationship, hopefully it's pretty good, but pretty strong loyalty. So that's been great. And then also plans are they've got a warehouse in Atlanta that we're tinkering with, maybe starting to deliver stuff down there as well. But it's a whole other bag of worms. But one of the things that we I guess we started growing wholesales because we really wanted to make sure our CSA members had enough good product. So CSA members, top paying client, and love their support. So we knew we always needed to kind of overproduce for our CSA, make sure the customers had enough, because we got to take care of them. And so we decided, well, we need to grow extra, so we need a place to sell extra stuff when we have extra stuff. And it just kind of has evolved into doing a lot of wholesale as well. This is the first year we haven't done a farmer's market, I think. I think we did just a short season last year in 2020 with strawberries, but we've not done a farmer's market all this year. And that's thanks to encouragement from my wife, who can hear me on the other side of the wall here. But she beat me over the head encouraged me for a couple of years to quit doing farmers markets, and it's really blessed our family not having to leave. We're 2 hours down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and leave at 4 in the morning and all that stuff. So it's been huge not to have to go to farmers market. Very thankful for it. Miss the income, but really enjoy being on the farm more. So just a couple pictures from the early years. I think that the scarecrow and the tomato was probably, I think that's probably from our first half acre of production. And also, I think those bottom, almost all those photos are from the first couple of years. There's a really cool, in the bottom right photo, it's I'm always trying to get efficient as best we can with stuff, and I've always been into cycling. So we welded 2 bikes together to kind of as a harvest cart down the bottom right picture there. Always getting creative. We did used to raise livestock. We did pigs and cows. And one year we even did chickens. Got flooded out, thanks to the rivers. But yeah, we kind of really enjoyed having livestock. Love the idea, especially what Elma does with incorporating them into building healthy soil. I wish we could do that. We just had too many irons in the fire, so we decided to quit doing animals. So we're no longer raising animals anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, we have aggressively scaled up, and I don't want that's been, so many people have been involved in that story and supporting us and, and helping us. It's just I get choked up just thinking about how many people have just surrounded us with their goodness and stuff. But here's just a couple photos there. On the top left, picture of watermelons. That's Abigail's closest to you, then Morgan. Morgan, terrific guy that lives down the road from us, wonderful family. And Jose Pedro, he's up there, just great folks. And then the middle picture, we've got 3 big coolers in our packing shed. In the bottom picture, you can kind of see our delivery trucks. We've got 2 box trucks and then a semi truck that kind of halfway works. It's a trial and error on that thing. But and then the top right photo is we started out, with a 45 horsepower tractor, and then we've got this is actually Bryce Bowman's old tractor. Just love that tractor, it's wonderful. But it's I think 150 horsepower tractor. And then tell you what, the piece of equipment that's behind that big tractor is called a high-speed disc. Those things are a phenomenal tool. I'm so thankful for it. Expensive tool, but just unbelievable things it can do. And if you're ever interested talking about it, I'd love to tell you about it. It's phenomenal. You use the fire out of that thing. It's like our go-to implement, really good for the soil and all that stuff. But it's caught on fire already once, so we got that figured out. So talk a little bit about scaling up. There's my 3 boys there. That was a month or so ago. And at the very bottom there is a really important question that we've pondered and always pondering is, what does it mean to be successful as a farmer? Some farmers are really small and successful. Some farmers are really big and it's successful. And that's something that we're always struggling with. Really struggling with that one is, what does it mean to be a successful farmer? Especially, first generation, it's hard to tell if you're being successful, but really want to encourage other farmers out there to take care of your family and to not get roped into the idea that bigger is always better. It's not. Got a neighbor that's a really large scale farmer and terrific grower, but at the end of the day, it's hard to say what success is. So I think that's something that's really important to think about as you go about your farming career, and that's something we're always toying with and figuring out. But so scaling up and scaling smart, I don't necessarily think I've scaled up smart, but we have screwed up so many things over the years, and but we just keep learning from them. But production, there's still things, goodness gracious, I screw things up every day. It's amazing. And then marketing, again, I've been surrounded, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I have no idea how to sell vegetables or what makes a good vegetable and whatnot. And we had very low retention rate on our CSA for years, and we'll probably continue to have lower retention rates than we'd like, but I guess it's just a continual growth. Once I decided to quit teaching and focus on farming, it was just, I knew I had to make it work, and been fortunate to have a lot of help and advice around me. But yeah, I kind of joke about the fact farming is fun. Farming is a lot of fun, driving the tractors and all that type of stuff and going through. But farming as a business is a whole nother ball of wax. I spend a lot of my time in this office with a headset on, talking to customers and trying to build connections where we can sell produce and figuring out insurance regulations and the whole nine. It's spend a lot of time in the office, and fortunately, I've got a great crew that does a lot of the field work for me. So business management, the whole nine. That's just something we've had to learn, and that's not even. And then there's a whole other side of stuff about tractors, whatever that stuff, but then you also have electrical stuff and mechanical stuff and refrigeration units and all that, the whole nine. I was working on electrical stuff this morning because one of our crews quit working. So been super fortunate as we've developed and expanded, and we've been able to just cash flow the whole thing. We've borrowed money to pay for land, but as far as equipment and infrastructure, we've been able to cash flow the whole thing. And that's feel very fortunate about that. And I'm seeing the questions pop up in the chat. I'd love to answer them now, but I was told by my bosses at Oak that I have to wait till the end. So, and when we were farming, we were doing year-round farming, but really decided it's best for the health of our family and for my health to stop growing year-round. We're not doing any winter markets. We'll sell some stuff for the winter wholesale and maybe a little bit of retail, but we pretty much quit. All my crew goes home most of the time, always by November, and then it's just in the winter. It's a lot of business management, marketing, and I've got a talented neighbor that's just amazing. We build and mechanic and weld and build and mechanic and weld and fix stuff and break stuff and spend a lot of money on it. But yeah, it's never ending. I enjoy the thrill of it, but it does get exhausting at times. And just for all those folks that are out there that are maybe in a tough spot in farming, just know 2 years ago, I was quitting farming. Probably talked to maybe some of you on the call, but I went back to grad school, took a couple classes while I was still farming so I could go back into teaching because I was done with it. I was tired of it, frustrated, burnt out, and depressed. It was horrible. But fortunately, provided we turned the corner, and seems like we're going well now. So very thankful for that. All right. This is the next slide with Jenny. And just so you all know, all credits to Jenny. She's created this whole PowerPoint, orchestrated it well. So she even gave me notes to talk from. And so great job, Jenny. So here we're going to talk a little bit about our high tunnels and just some experimentation, but I'll let the video talk about it.
between two of our high tunnels that were funded thankfully by Equip. I think we started building the high tunnels, gosh, 8 or 10 years ago. Whenever the program first kind of came out, we got one and built it, and then it seemed like every year there for a couple years we were building high tunnels in the winter. We first started out utilizing them to to do early season production, try to get our tomatoes in early, and so we could harvest them earlier for our CSA members. And then we would, after the tomatoes came out, we would then transition to like fall crops that we could do for winter vegetable share. But as our business grew and as my personal family kiddos grew, we decided to transition out of year-round production, and we decided just to do kind of the May to November production. So the tunnels here, again, these are tomato tunnels right here. And after the tomatoes come out in, I don't know, July or something like that, we'll clean them all the way out and then put in a cover crop to help rebuild the soil for next season. And some years, if we're ambitious and have energy, we will plant some type of fall crop in there, but usually just a one-time harvest, or, something like a kale that we'll, just harvest and sell pretty quickly outside of our CSA, maybe through wholesale production. These are mainly red deuce tomatoes. And we're experimenting with a new thing this year. This is bags filled with Vermont compost, and then the bottom of the bag is actually cut. It's cut at the very bottom so the roots continue to go down into the soil. We had a neighbor that was growing stuff in bags, and it was just phenomenal, his results. But we knew, we wanted to actually use the soil to. It's an expensive way to do it. We're not sure if we like it, but at the end of it, we'll still have Vermont compost that we're dumping into the ground, so we're excited about that. But the first 4 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows are in the bag system, and then the other 4 rows are just in our traditional, black fabric into regular soil. And we're seeing a little bit more potential yield in the bags, but probably not worth extra hassle.
Just kind of a side note on those tomatoes, the bag system, I don't think it was worth it, but sometimes we get so busy we just don't manage stuff well and blame it on other things, but I don't think it's worth it for us. All right. Let's see. So, Ginny, I'm supposed to talk on this slide, correct? All right. Man, there are so many resources out there for farmers, but they don't always come out and jump out and get you. I think one of the things that I learned early on is there's resources out there, but there weren't necessarily people out there telling you what the resources were. Now, thanks to all the work that Brooke and Oak does, they can connect you with resources. But there are so many great educational resources out there. Oak, Kentucky Center for Ag and Rural Development, Grow Appalachia, funding resources, USDA, so you can read them there. But and then we have utilized any free money that's out there, cost share. We've hustled to get all those grant money, which has been super helpful. If we spend $5,000 piece of equipment, that local cost share can ship in $2,500. To me, if I can spend 2 hours doing an application and get $2,500, that's a pretty good rate of return. And man, there's so many great resources out there once you do decide to start growing wholesale. In UK has a person, Brian Brady, that can, I think he still does that, but can help you with all the wholesale hoops. I remember several years ago when we first started considering wholesale, I was like, gosh, I want a gap. You have to get this third-party gap audit. I was pretty intimidated. And then Christy Durbin from UK kind of helped me, and then Brian Brady. And now it's just kind of, it's easier than going out to dinner now. But yes, Tina definitely has a great book there. You can see the UK has a great extension book, Roxbury Farm. I still look at their farm manuals. And then other farmers. Man, I tell you, there are some great organic farmers in the state here. We're all busy, but I think one of the things I've loved about all my friends that grow is, they're all willing to help each other out. So it's great. So thankful for all the support that's out there. give a kind of quick video on lettuce production. So we do grow quite a bit of wholesale lettuce, but just in the, kind of gets a little too hot for it in the summer. But we grow wholesale lettuce, and this is kind of quick video. And I hope everyone knows out there, I don't claim to be a great grower by any means. I mean, if you came out today, you go, goodness gracious, this guy has no idea what he's doing. But I was asked to teach a little bit about what we do. So here it is.
Kind of talking a little bit about our evolution in lettuce. It's kind of from past years to where we are now. So lettuce is one of those things that, most families enjoy eating. So we started growing it years ago for our farm share CSA members. And then used to always just grow it on bare dirt, reduce the plastic use. And then I guess a couple years ago, we got approached by a company to start growing some lettuce on wholesale production. And we're eager to do anything, so we went for it and learned a lot this first year. And learned that, one, it's really hard to grow lettuce in the heat of the summer, so we don't actually produce lettuce, from like August to September. We kind of stop lettuce production, but we grow a lot of lettuce for our CSA members. I think, we probably harvest anywhere from 800 to 1,000 heads a week for our CSA members, maybe more, maybe less, depending on what else is available. And then for wholesale and some of our retail accounts that we're delivering to, maybe 2 to 3, 4,000 a week, something like that, with the lettuces. And so we're in the springtime when we're seeding in the greenhouses. I think we're seeding every 2 weeks. It was like 6,000 heads, somewhere in that range. That'll kind of give us plenty in case some of it doesn't turn out well. And so we'll be harvesting, delivering lettuce from 1st of May until when it gets too hot in August, when it starts bolting. And then we'll start coming back in with lettuce, usually late August, early September, and continue on with it until October, November. And that's when things go well and as the plan. And you can kind of see here in the field here, we, thanks to Bryce Bowman, we're doing flat white plastic for the lettuce production. It's a 4 rows of lettuce per bed on this flat white plastic. Helps keep the ground a little cooler, with 2 rows of drip tape underneath the plastic. And it seems to be doing pretty well for us. We do, fertilize underneath the plastic before we lay the plastic, but it's good. It's going pretty well. Flat plastic is a little harder, I think, to lay than raised bed mulch, but we're figuring it out though. But you can kind of talk.
Yeah, and just a side note on that lettuce production. We did not keep growing with wholesale lettuce until August this year. I think we stopped. I can't remember, but definitely didn't make it to August. On that, Bryce had a great idea on using a flat bed, like 4 rows of lettuce per bed, which is terrific. I guess some of our soil gets a little too wet, and so we've shifted back to doing a raised bed. We're still using white plastic for some of the plantings, but we're only able to do 3 beds, 3 rows of lettuce on the raised bed instead of 4, which takes a little more room, but I think we're able to keep the lettuce a little cleaner. So just some things kind of beyond production, though, other things as far as that, it's always on my mind as a farmer. And I always joke with Elmwood, because when I worked in Elmwood, all I saw was all the great glorious moments of vegetable production, and it gets shipped out and they're making money. And but these are all those things that people don't tell you about. At least maybe I'm just naive, but I never thought about them. I thought farming was driving a tractor and growing vegetables, but that's not even half of it. So figuring out, insurance requirements, to sell the Whole Foods, we had to completely revamp our insurance. Auto insurance, homeowner insurance, farm insurance, and I spent hours and weeks of just figuring out insurance. And then staff and hiring regulations. So we employ wonderful legal migrant workers from Mexico, and we had to have a bill to give them. Their housing is inspected multiple times throughout the year. I have to help them get Social Security cards every year. I have to have workers' comp on these guys. There's just, then W-2s and all kinds of crazy stuff, which, I think I'm doing it right, but there's always mistakes in them, realizing I have made. Marketing. So, gosh, like I always joke about, the fact that a lot of people, and I remember John Bell telling me this, you can get out and grow a vegetable after, you can become pretty proficient at that. You can become a fairly good grower with, a few years under your belt, but then it's like, you got to sell it and make a profit, and that's where it becomes challenging, I think, is being able to sell all this stuff. Because that's tough. I spend a lot of time. As you can see in this picture, this is Jeff Fox, just a wonderful guy that's taken me under his wing. So his wife, well, they've been CSA members for 7 or 8 years. She was the wellness director at EKU when I worked out there, and was a CSA member then. And she helped us for years, just doing Facebook posts and newsletters and whatnot. And then Jeff retired a year and a half, 2 years ago from a career-long career as a marketing guy. And Renee his wife was starting to get busy, and Renee said, "Well, let me introduce you to Jeff." And so Jeff he's taking me under his wing, and we spent once a week together, pretty much every week. From the time the season ends. I think this is actually like October 10th or something like that, 3 days after the CSA delivery season ended up. He and I met and figured out a game plan for how we're going to sell more produce and how we're going to expand CSA. And he's just terrific. He's terrific. Just unbelievable, and eager to help other folks as well. That's his website there. He's just unbelievable guy. Because before, and I still, well, yeah, he helped me. He helps me with all those things, and without him, I wouldn't be able to do that. And then there's all the mechanical thing: plumbing, construction, welding, fixing equipment, all that stuff. I have one of the world's most talented neighbors. It's my wife's distant cousin, Jimmy Gambrell. I'm sure he'll never watch this video, but hats off to him. He's a neat old cuss, but man, he is talented, one of the most talented guys I've ever seen. And he lives, half a quarter mile down the road. So when something breaks, he'll come and help me in the field. He's got a wonderful shop where everything can be done. And I mean, literally, if it weren't for him, I would be, I'd be like, well, in my mind, I'd be in super big debt because I'd have to buy new equipment that I could count on. But for years, one of the reasons we've been able to bootstrap and cash flow the whole thing is we can buy junk, and if it quit working, I can count on Jimmy to help me get running again. Or, for years we'd never bought any real vegetable equipment. We bought junky old garden style equipment, and then we weld and create and build and modify until we got it to do what we wanted to do. And I think his last, and just to give you an idea, I used a piece of junk plastic layer until last year. I mean, for first 8 years of our farming career, we were using this terrible plastic layer that wouldn't lay plastic for anything. We'd have to go back and cover all the sides of the plastic so the wind wouldn't blow it off. And then last year, 2 years, this is our second season using a real plastic layer. And so for 10 years we had, anyway, and it's made a huge difference. But I was not willing to take out money, loans to buy equipment, because I didn't know if I'd be able to make a farming or not. So very fortunate. And then building, I mean, Jimmy and I built the house that we live in, and that's just a huge blessing. There's many negatives to living in rural Eastern Kentucky, but thanks to Jimmy. Keeping good records, I would say that I do that, but we do try to keep really good records. And again, I lean on some of the guys that work for me. I got Carlos, is a bilingual guy from Mexico, his computer engineering degree. And he developed a spreadsheet that helps predict sales and tells me how much stuff we need to sell. And I mean, they're just unbelievable. So I wouldn't be able to do it without the crew here. But in always innovation, creativity, efficiencies, I spend a lot of time trying to think of ways to do things better. Here's a picture of an idea, an experiment that was a complete failure. I have twin boys. This is their twin stroller. Really wanted to figure out flame weeding. So this is a homemade flame weeder, completely out of iron pipe, and welded some tips on there. And not only did it, and I think this is like the third iteration, the one before, anyways, that thing burned up in the field. Guess I'm getting long-winded here. So we're going to shift to another thing that we've kind of gotten a cool new idea. All right, take it away.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about our irrigation setup. So for many years, and still I'm not very good at laying plastic, so we'd end up with a row that's 6 foot on center, then we'd end up with one that's 4 on center, then one that's 8 on center. So the holes for your drip tape, we'd be all over the place, and one year to the next, nothing would match up, and it was just, you know, complete nightmare. So we came across a farmer that was using this spaghetti tubing style irrigation that allows some flexibility. So fortunately, these rows are all fairly 6 foot on center, but you can kind of see here, this tube goes way in there. So if our hole next year was actually over here, I can just jab that in the hole, run over it with a tractor, and not break anything. So it allows you a lot of flexibility, because with drip tape, if you try to bend drip tape, it's going to kink on you. So this spaghetti tubing, I guess is what you call it, it just allows you a lot of flexibility. And if it's too long, you can, you know, loop it around and do whatever you want with it, and then just jab it back into your lay flat. It's not quite, it doesn't seal quite as tight as, you know, regular fitting, but it allows so much more flexibility. And actually now that we're getting better at laying plastic, and this is just one of those things that I guess learned from over years of making too many mistakes, is now that we can lay almost everything 6 foot on a center pretty reliably, we're cutting all of our lay flat into 44 foot sections, which is 8 rows of plastic about. And so that way at the end of the season, we're only rolling up a 44 foot section. And then when it's time to lay it out in the year, you know, it should match up pretty well, which we're pretty excited about. All right, so we're going to talk a little.
One of the reasons and one of the reasons we've gotten better at laying plastic is because I turn that over to one of the other guys on the team. I no longer lay plastic because they get mad at me when I do it. So I got Hugo and Jose lay plastic for us, man. They're terrific at it. A couple of just other innovations that are very helpful on our farm that we rely on constantly. So the left-hand picture is an app called Trello, and I always have my cell phone on me, even though I don't have cell reception. The only time I have cell reception is actually when I'm in my basement, my office, or out the package shed. But so it's an app that's just unbelievable. So like, this is the guys, what the work list was on Saturday. And so they all carry cell phones, you know, tells them exactly how much to harvest, what they're going to do after that, and yada, yada, yada. So having a way that we can communicate, and, you know, in early years, I would just write on a piece of paper and give it to them. But then if they got lost or got wet, whatever, it was ruined. So, you know, provide them with a cheap cell phone, and that's just terrific. They can manage it. They manage inventory on this app as well. You know, they can, even when we don't have cell service, they can enter the information in and it'll upload later. This is another thing. This is another great blessing from Uncle Jimmy. So this little cart here, we use this out in the field for a lot of different things. It's just a rebar that we've bent up and welded. And these are actually the wheels off of that flame leader that we burned up. But anyways, you can kind of, here's a picture that we use a lot of these plastic RPC crates. Set them in the wheelbarrow there. Hey, hold on 1 second. I want to go. 1 second. Cosecha tomatoes. All this. Need me or you to this place. Amigo see cosecha. Sorry, guys, we're headed out to the field, pick tomatoes. But anyways, yeah. So really nice thing, keeps all the, especially for wholesale, keeps all of the things clean. And if we are picking for wholesale, we can also put just a wax box in these little carts, and it keeps the produce nice and clean. So anyways, all right. I was going to talk a little bit about another thing we kind of purchased to become a little bit more efficient. So this is a water wheel puncher without the water wheel. Allows you to go super fast, and it's got little, you can kind of see on the bottom of the picture here, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but these little wheels that hug the edge of the plastic to keep the punches centered really well. It's super easy to hook up, super lightweight. We rarely use our water wheel setter anymore except for tomatoes and peppers, but I think there's going to be a video showing a little bit more. But
this is kind of a new experimental piece of equipment we got this season, mainly because the water wheel setter it just, we're farming a lot of different locations and hauling that much water back and forth to different farms. When we did need to use the water wheel setter, it was just problematic. So we bought this piece of equipment. This is new to us this year. The basic idea is these wheels, there's wheels in the front, wheels in the back, but it hugs the edge of the plastic. So it doesn't matter how bad of a driver you are, like I am, it keeps the punches, the wheel centered on the plastic, or however many wheels you have on the plastic. So what we've kind of trying to transition, instead of using water wheel setter, is we'll have the irrigation running for as long as it takes to get the beds good and wet. So the plant has a good water source to go into when you first plant it. But we'll turn the irrigation on, get the soil really good and wet, and then we'll just drive super fast across the beds of plastic with this wheel puncher, punching all the holes, and then the guys just come behind it and are planting the plants as quickly by hand as they can. It's working well so far. It's definitely faster than using the water wheel setter, it seems. But if we run into a really bad dry spell, I'm afraid the dirt will just be too dry. But for us, it's working pretty well now. And you can set 1 or 4 or 5 wheels on that thing, no problem, and drive fast.
Yeah, we've been using that quite a bit this season. It works really, really well. It takes a little bit to get dialed in and whatnot, but we've also, seems like you can count on rain about every week lately. So if we know rain's coming and we're getting ready to plant, we'll go ahead and punch all the holes before the rain, and then the rain will get the holes good and wet. But in those pictures, you might notice those wheels were really muddy, and some days you just have to be out there in the mud, even though it's not looking swell. But man, I tell you what, again, this is a picture from the season. This is a crew of guys here in the front right. That's Carlos. All the guys on our team are unbelievably talented. They all have their strengths. Tony back there drives a semi-truck. Jose's a great mechanic. But we were joking the other day. I said, if you guys need to schedule some vacation, whatever. And Carlos said, what about me? Can I schedule vacation? I said, no, Carlos, because he runs invoicing. He does delivery routes. He does the deliveries. He tells the guys how much to pack. Everything that goes out the door, these guys do. I really do office work and drive tractors, and that's about it. They just headed out to pick tomatoes. We got 2 guys out off our team right now that are sick. So I'm having to go help pick tomatoes, and my kids help too. But yeah, these guys are terrific, unbelievable. And then Uncle Jimmy as well. And they've got a great wife too. She works off the farm well. And then our customers, not every customer's happy, obviously, but we try to bend over backwards to make our customers happy, because we make screw ups in the customized CSA packet every week, and customers are not happy with that. But we try to realize that without our customers, we're not going to have a business, so we try to take good care of them. So yeah, that was a lot to cover in an hour. Definitely want to stick around and answer any questions that you have. But again, gosh, there's so many things that I'd like to say. We have screwed up so many things and had so many great people out there helping us out. But it's doable. A lot of people still tell me, oh, you can't make any money farming. No way. No how. Shouldn't be. Why did you ever quit teaching? And man, I tell you, I'm thankful that not always thankful that I quit teaching, but very thankful for where we are now. All right, Jenny.
All right, thank you, Ford. You shared so much, and I know it's a lot to cram in. These are typically 3-hour on-farm field day events that we hold, and we cram them into 1 hour so you can take them away in a recording in a PDF. So you got a lot from it. Ford definitely shared a lot and is available for some more questions. And we would like to ask you if you're interested in contacting him or us. We're going to share this contact information again in that PDF with you. Feel free to reach out to us, and please give us your feedback on this event, or what you're looking for, what you'd like to see, what great farmer down the road who is worthy of us coming and doing a field day on their organic farm. And so we'll share a survey link in the chat with you, and go ahead and click on that link so it'll be available as soon as we wrap up today, and you don't have to think of it later. We are also going to share with you a lot of these organic production resources in addition to what you saw at the beginning of the event. These will all have hyperlinks, way too many to go over, but we think they're all valuable. And so if you're interested in transitioning to organic production or moving in that direction, you can certainly contact Brooke for our transition trainer program. You can also keep in touch with us by coming to our field days. We've got 2 more left in the 2021 season, one at the end of next month at Bar Farms, and then one in October at UK's Organic Farming Unit. The first of those at Bar Farms is virtual. The October one is still TBD based on our current reality. So we are going to open it up to questions. We're going to encourage you once again to fill out that survey that will drop in the chat in case you missed it. And we want your feedback on that survey. And we want you to learn a little bit more from Ford. So we'll say thank you, Ford, and thank you all for joining us. And before I leave these slides, I'm going to back them up just a bit, because the first question I'm going to launch is that picture on the left there, Ford, with you in front of some of your tomato plants, I'm thinking. And there's a lot growing in between those rows. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've got in between your rows there?
Yeah. And again, this is like another thing I learned from another farmer, actually at Elmwood. That's annual rye between the rows of plastic. So we try to do that to protect the soil, keep the soil in place and keep a root going in the soil. So yeah, between our rows of plastic, when it makes sense, we're using annual rye, which doesn't do well in the heat of the summer, and we're still trying to find a good thing to sow between the rows of plastic in the summer, because annual rye, it's hard to get it to germinate in the heat. But we had some ideas this year, but got rained out and didn't get it done. So yeah.
All right, so you mentioned cover crops as well in your high tunnel rotation, and there was a specific question from Angela about that. You had tomatoes in the high tunnels we saw, and you mentioned a cover crop, and then can you kind of tell us about those rotations?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Actually, we just one of the things that I did earlier today was so all of our tomato tunnels are cleaned out, and we're sowing I believe it was cowpeas, Sudan grass, some sun hemp, and a little bit of buckwheat. So yeah, I mean, we try to really take care of the soil in those high tunnels because they're not movable. So yeah, I mean, the tomatoes came out last week, I think, and then we're a little behind, but yeah, we just sowed them in cover crop today. So yeah, and yeah.
All right. So you mentioned some of the funding that you have for your farm. You mentioned equip for the high tunnels. You had on that one slide several different funding opportunities you've taken advantage of. Have you, in addition to the grants that you've sought out, have you done loan programs or any of those? And this was asked again by Angela, who is in Texas. And so anything national would probably be most relevant to her, anything statewide.
Yes. Yeah. There is like the beginning farmer loan. We never ended up getting that, but there's loans out there to help you produce or to purchase land. And at a fairly low interest rate. It's been a while since I've looked into that, but there are grants out there to help you, not grants, but loans to help you purchase land. But I can't remember all the ins and outs of that. But leasing land, and some of the land that we lease is definitely not the best vegetable ground around, but it's a cheap lease and it's the only lease we can get. So yeah. So I think I answered the question.
Yeah. And that PowerPoint that we share will have additional resources. Definitely check out USDA and all of their programs. They've got a lot to offer. Flipping back just a little bit to the rye between your rows, Will Bowling is asking, does field traffic keep them manageable, or are you mowing them down throughout the season?
Oh, yeah, great question, Will. Yeah, we are mowing and quite frequently, actually, and it's a terrible job, and it's not always picture perfect, but yeah, we are mowing those. It seems like mowing it with just it's like we have a 36-inch walk behind lawnmower that's, it's like, hydraulically driven. It used to be what we mowed our grass around our house with, but stole that from the house and we use it in the fields now. But put some big mud gripper tires on it to help out when it is wet. But yeah, that does a good job. If the plastic is laid fairly evenly, if you get a little tight with your plastic, if it's a little tighter than 6 foot on centers, it rips, the mower rips into the side of the plastic, which stinks, but that happens.
Yeah. I'm just going to acknowledge the time. We're going to stick around with Ford for a little bit longer for a few more questions. It is just after 3, and so if anybody needs to go, we'll share the recording with you. It's on our Oak Farmer Field Days website and our YouTube channel, so definitely check out anything you missed or share it with your friends. So as far as scaling up for selling wholesale, how much time do you think that took?
I guess that's a tough question to answer. So, there's like the whole aspect of feeling comfortable selling to wholesale, like feeling like you're a good enough grower to meet those wholesale grading qualifications, which, we were fortunate. We started out with something that was pretty flexible on the grading. We started out with winter squash. It's not too intense on food safety, and it's, winter squash is pretty easy. It holds up well. So we started out with that. I think it was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, growing winter squash, just to kind of get our feet wet with all the food safety regulations and, production stuff and wholesale grading. And then we just kind of started expanding from there. So the food safety, like actually getting the third-party gap audit, we have an auditor come in and make sure you're doing everything that you say you're going to do for food safety, is one ball of wax, and the other ball of wax is, I guess, like growing a good quality crop that's profitable, because wholesale prices are much lower than retail prices. But it's also, I'm kind of redneck, so I like big tractors and big trucks, so you get to grow a lot of quantity of stuff to, but it's not as profitable as, smaller scale production when you're selling it to retail, but kind of works out.
Yeah. And have you dabbled outside of the diverse vegetables? And I know I don't even know how many dozens of different vegetable crops you've got going, but outside of that and the livestock that you've tried and let go of, have you dabbled in row crops, grains, any of that?
No, we have not. No. Don't have that. Don't have access to that much land. I think it'd be great, but I think that'd be a whole nother set of specialized equipment that in land based, I don't have.
Yeah. And so this year you've got a crew of 9. You've got help from your kids and every now and then supplemental here and there, and lots of resources you've pulled from your community, CSA members, neighbors, family. What is your actual staff, your paid staff? What does the retention on that staff look like?
Oh, I tell you what, that's 100%. That's, we try really hard to, there's always things we could do better for our employees, the guys, but when it's their birthday, we have, we're like family. They hang out with my kids, and my kids aren't integral on the farm, but they help out, but we treat them, I guess, the way we want to be treated, like it's been, hot the last couple of weeks. So, there's more work that needs to be done, but to me, 60, 70 hours a week, I don't want to work too much more than that. So, we just say, okay, well, that's not getting done. We stay in touch throughout the winter, stay in touch. And I give them a lot of, the first couple of years were tough, like trusting them and getting them comfortable with everything. But now, they really run the show. I sometimes I'll try to come up with an idea and they're like, no, that's not going to work. But they, I'm like, oh, you need to load the truck like this. And they're like, okay. And I'll try it. They'll try it. And they're like, that was a terrible idea. Just let us do our thing, and it's taken a long time to get there, but it feels so, it's just amazing. It's great. I left the farm for 5 days in June, 4 days, something like that. But yeah, they're phenomenal. They need to be encouraged, and I think it's easy to just think of them as people that are here to work, but I don't think they'll work with. I want to treat them like I want to be treated. So, we're fortunate to be in America. Maybe one day I'll have to go work for them in Mexico, and I want them to treat me well too. So, yeah. So yeah, we have 100% retention. I mean, well, taking it back 1 year, the first year we had guys, one of my favorite guys ever, he actually got arrested, has not been able to come back. But every year we keep trying to get him to come back. But he got in some trouble while he's here. Stupid mistake, but yeah, we keep. His brother works for me now, so it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I think people are people, right? And if we're treated right and treated like family in even a work situation, it makes it easier to want to keep coming back and stick around. And so we had a question about your seed sourcing, and it was specifically about non-GMO. I just wanted to kind of, before you answer, Ford, reiterate that because Ford is certified organic, regulations are such that he must source organic seeds, which is by definition non-GMO. And those regulations are referenced in a couple of these slides a couple times, so you can dig a little deeper into this after you've heard Ford's answer if you're interested.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely what Jenny said there about non-GMO and non-treated and not conventional. For most of our vegetable seeds, we go with Johnny Selected Seeds and then also Seedway. You can Google both of them. And then, that's most of our vegetable seeds comes from there. And then cover crop seeds, there's a great company in Kentucky called Kentucky Organic Farm and Feed, Kofi Coffee, I think it is, out of somewhere in Western Kentucky, Elkton maybe. But we buy most of our cover crop seeds from them because they're able to get them fairly priced, and then sometimes I go pick them up if we're getting a big load of seeds. But they do, and for other organic farms out there, they also do a lot of soil recommendations. So we can send off our soil samples to Kofi, Kentucky Organic Farm and Feed, and they can do custom blended organic fertilizers for you that are really reasonably priced. And that's a whole nother like ball of wax. I mean, soil science is super complicated. And, I tried to understand it and just gave up. And I said, all right. So I called guys at Kentucky Organic. I'm like, hey, this is my soil sample for this farm. Can you blend something for me? Like, sure, here you go. So that's another nice resource that for years, I just never could wrap my mind that well around soil science and just did the best I could. But now I feel like I got another employee that works for me, even though they don't really work for me. So, yeah.
So Ben is curious about your insurance, where you're getting it, what kind of insurance you're carrying for all these diverse markets.
Yeah. Man, I tell you what, we had Kentucky Farm Bureau for years and it was terrible. I could not stand them. I hope no one ever, well, maybe it's just our local Farm Bureau. And if you're out there, Farm Bureau, you guys are terrible. But we switched to a company called, I can't remember
Good thing you're in your office right now.
Yeah, because I know the people's name. I just can't remember the name of their business. It is, it's American National, and I mean, just terrific people to work with. So the person's name is Laney, L-A. Maybe I'll just type in the chat. That might be easier.
There you go. Yeah.
Terrific.
All right, Ben, glad you were able to join us by computer so you can get this question answered direct.
Laney, but I mean, just terrific business. I mean, very responsive, very helpful. When we had to go through the whole Whole Foods with the leafy greens policy insurance, I mean, they've been over backwards to try to figure it out for me and get a good rate. And even like they subscribe to our weekly and monthly newsletter, and they sent me a note that said, "Oh, that was such a beautiful thing you said about your employees this week." I mean, it's another small business, but they do great work. So yeah, hats off to them. Make sure if you call and make sure that you tell them I said hello.
Going back to your soil test, you mentioned earlier as far as delivering that result to Kofi to be able to get that custom blend made for it. Tell us about your soil testing. Is that annual, or are you getting that through local extension office or somewhere?
Yeah, so we do it annually, and I honestly can't remember the name of the organization that the company that does it for us, but if you call Kofi, they'll actually tell you, hey, this is the soil lab we want you to work with, because I guess they have a good relationship. So they can tell you who who to get your sample done with, and I mean it's very reasonable. Extension agent, the extension does do soil samples, and they're cheaper, I think, but they they just give you the soil sample. And that's they don't give you any recommendations other than basic stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, so those dig a little deeper. I'm thinking, and Brooke, maybe you know for sure, is it Logan Labs that they're using to dial in their recommendations for fertilizer and such?
Probably either Logan Labs or Waters or
Okay, yeah.
Midwest Biolabs. Those are the three that are most common.
Yeah.
I feel like Waters might be the one, but they'll tell you who they want you to work with.
Yeah, Waters is down in West Kentucky, so that would make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
One final question that I have in front of me, in case anybody's really holding on to one, was actually from registration, and I just want to get the, you didn't mention garlic specifically, but we had Ben, a grower from Louisville, who's dialing in his garlic and wondered what lessons you've learned about that, and if you've done any dehydration and packaging of that. Maybe he means curing, not sure.
Yeah, I'm not a good garlic grower. I mean, we grow some, but we don't grow a ton. We cure ours in our greenhouse, like just on some type of rack to keep it dry, blow fans at it, and then we move it into a walk-in cooler. I think that one's probably at 60 degrees. So yeah, we don't do anything special. There's a really good garlic grower, I think Blue Moon Garlic in Kentucky, I think somewhere around Berea, Madison County area, that we went to for some advice early on. I know at one point Elmwood said you can't make any money growing the garlic, so if Elmwood says it, I'm like, okay, not doing it either. So yeah. Have
you found a favorite variety?
No, not. It just kind of some years if we try to save our own seed, but that don't, it seemed like our bulbs kept getting smaller and smaller. So I can't remember who we even bought it from a couple years ago, but we bought organic seed, whatever hardneck variety is recommended. I can't remember. But
yeah, I know music is a favorite. And I will say, just from my own experience, Pam Dalling has some awesome tips on growing garlic out there, just for my own throw-in. What do you think are the best organic veggies to grow, in thinking of cost of production, time, and then the profit margin on selling those?
Boy, yeah, that's a great question. I wish I could give a good answer to that. I mean, some farmers are really good at certain crops, and some farmers are terrible at other crops. So full disclosure. So last year we planted like 2,000 pounds of potatoes or something like that, and we only harvested 500 pounds. So we actually lost 1,500 pounds of potatoes planted. And that was in bottomland, good fertile soil. This year we planted on a really junky leased farm. The soil wasn't very good, and they went gangbusters. And I was almost giving up growing potatoes because like, this is terrible. And Bryce, another farmer, said, hey, try growing them up on a hillside somewhere, where you're higher elevation, because he had good luck with it. And so we did that this year, and it was unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could say, oh, grow this crop, but I think it's always so important to remember, you can grow the crop, maybe you're the best grower at growing whatever, but unless you have a market for that crop, there's almost no point in growing it. But I mean, granted, you got to start somewhere. I mean, you got to learn how to grow it to have to sell it. But tomatoes are always a profitable crop, but they also get a lot of disease and challenging. Everyone has them. So gosh, crop to grow. Yeah. Couldn't give you an answer on that one.
Sounds like one of those experience is the best teacher type of questions. Yeah.
If you're in Kentucky, though, I mean, pepper, like find out what the large farms in Kentucky are growing, and usually, like I've got a neighbor that grows hundreds of acres of peppers, because peppers grow really well in Kentucky, like other crops don't. But if you find a big farm around you that's growing a lot of something, usually that they've been around for a while, they know what they're doing and know that the crop does well in their area. So that's my recommendation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions I see. Am I missing anybody? We really are grateful for all of you for joining us today. Super grateful to Ford for sharing all his insight and lessons learned over these dozen years. And we hope to see you all. Fill out that survey for us so we'll know what you want as we're planning next year's events, and hope to see you all maybe next month, hopefully soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Oak.